All right, thanks everyone for checking out this video. My guest here needs no introduction if you're familiar with Attack of the Show. If you see him on Film Threat, he is a cool teenager from the planet X. And if you're like me, he cost you about $30,000 in DVDs from DV Tuesday on Attack of the Show. The one and only Chris Gore. Thank you for being here.
Zach, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Love the poster in your background. That's great. That's cool, man.
I love it
Dig
too.
it.
I was at the premiere. It was a great time. Thank you for making this as a fan of the show. This was something growing up in a small Wisconsin town that helped. It helped me feel like I belonged to something. And again, your DB Tuesday did help provide me with something to do on the weekends and everything else, like deep dive into genre stuff that people like us are a big fan of.
It was always my intention with DV Tuesday, like, here's the big movie that's coming out this week. I have to cover that.
Right.
It's like it's coming out, I got to cover it. But I would always sneak in like these little small indie movies that no one had ever heard of, because I wanted to kind of broaden the taste of people who watch the show so that you got the idea that it's not just about the big mainstream releases. It's also about the
Mhm.
indie stuff, which is also kind of like my mission in life. That's why I started Film Threat, like I literally started Film Threat as a kid out of high school as a punk rock zine. And I still have that job, oddly. I don't know what happened. But yeah, no, that was always my intention with DV Tuesday is like, let's talk about Transformers, but let's talk about trauma movies and Citizen Toxie or
Yes.
Poultrygeist or Puppet Master 5 or just whatever, just really cool, like small indies. And I love that. I think once you have like a broadened taste when it comes to media, it offers different perspectives.
Yeah, I think it's your taste that made me spend all that money on DVDs because it just seems like something that you could have a discussion on, and it's not just a one-sided thing. I did buy Poultrygeist because of you, but I love horror and I love like Sleepaway Camp. I love deep diving into all the random stuff that's not really mainstream.
I'm all about that. I mean, I fell in love with indie film when I was a kid, and just it takes you down a rabbit hole of like John Waters movies, David Lynch, like the crazy classics, Alejandro Jodorowsky, among others. It's indie film is really my lifeblood. It invigorates me, and I like a good. Don't look. I'm not an elitist. I'm not a snob. I love a good Marvel movie. We haven't seen many lately, but I love a good Marvel movie,
Yeah.
like just a good popcorn blockbuster tentpole movie. Like I'm all about it. Give me Top Gun Maverick. I liked
Yeah.
Avatar 2, The Way of Water. I liked it, you know. I love a good spectacle or a well-told story. And we're not getting a lot of that lately, unfortunately, out of Hollywood. So it's
No,
unfortunate.
it is. But what is very fortunate is this documentary. It is available now on video on demand. The Blu-ray will be out this summer. I just enjoyed how it was, and let me just say, I went with my wife to it, who did not watch Attack of the Show. I did religiously. It was like my appointment TV, which I don't even think there is anymore. But I just want to let you know, it translated very well for her as well. You use archival footage, which just keeps you in the setting of the time, which I like. You use animation from Second Life, which was a very kind of Attack of the Show way to use animation in there, which I really appreciate. And then I sat next to him at the premiere. Zach Selwyn you use as a tour guide, and he uses music and humor to bring you
Yeah.
through everything. When did you figure out that's the formula for the doc?
From the very beginning, that was actually the formula. Was like, it was gonna bookend with me, kind of like do the intro. I'm the outro. I kind of pop my head in every once in a while. Zach was gonna be the Greek chorus, kind of telling you what's happening because it's like, well, how do I explain? A lot of the information that's in the doc is boring, right? Like Esquire took over. Like that's not what's a fun way to tell that. How do you deliver boring information in a way that's entertaining? Throw Zach Selwyn in there. There are 8 songs in the documentary. He did make 10 songs, and the 2 songs that we did cut, they're actually on the soundtrack, which is on Spotify. And the animation, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do animation style. I'm like, and there's animation, but I ended up meeting the Second Life people. We actually built a movie theater in Second Life, like where we do events related to Film Threat, which are a lot of fun. And when I say we, I mean they, the animators doing the machinima, they created a fully accurate representation of the original Attack of the Show set.
Nice.
Can I give something away?
Please do.
That is going to be an extra on the Blu-ray, a link to go. You can't find it anywhere. We're not going to, it's just like you get the Blu-ray and you will be able to find out how to go to a secret place in Second Life where you can visit virtually the set of Attack of the Show, and it's the actual set, the podium that Kevin and Olivia stood on. I think we're gonna do like a meetup there. I'll leak that, like, meet at the Second Life set or whatever. But I've never heard of anyone doing that extra. And the Blu-ray I've been working on since last summer. It really is going to be kind of a mic drop on everything with deleted scenes, all the interviews that you see with everybody. We're doing extended versions of all the interviews. So someone in the doc gets to talk for 5 minutes. You'll get to hear them talk for an hour, like a podcast effectively. So all
Right.
of those interviews will be on the disc because it sucks. I had Casey Schreiner, the head writer. God, he told so many great stories. Collectively, the two directors, Alan Wu and Genji Keen, collectively, they directed over 1,000 episodes of Attack of the Show. And so they told a lot of great stories, but we just used little bits. And I like that you appreciate, because I've been criticized for it. You know, I could have done on-camera interviews with all these people, but you don't recognize who they are.
Right. Right.
I wanted to do an archival doc where you're in it. You're just in that time. You're hearing voices from the present, but what you're seeing is all from the past, or it's graphics or flourishes. Um, Boy, I'm long-winded. I
That's
said,
fine.
sorry, man. I just but no, I appreciate that you saw that. Like, archival documentaries is actually a style. Um, there are a couple documentaries, a bunch that do it. Belushi does it. There's a
Hmm.
documentary called Montage of Heck. Brett Morgan. Brett Morgan also did the recent David Bowie documentary. Same thing.
Ah,
The David Bowie documentary is an archival doc. And I thought, I'm going to make an archival doc. Little did I realize that's like one of the hardest kinds of documentaries to make, not just because it's time consuming, but legally, we kind of got a picture lock about 6 months ago, but it took us all that time to get it legally cleared so we could release it on Amazon and, all the
hmm.
places people buy movies, YouTube and Google, all the whatever, all the video on demand services. I wanted it to be legally, we can release it. So, and we spent a year building a library of assets. I might just release the library because why not? Who cares?
Hmm.
The library of assets are everything we collectively did, like literally the best of Kevin Pereira, the best of Olivia Munn, the best of Candace Bailey, Sarah Underwood. We created these, and then also by topic. And we spent a year doing that with hundreds of hours of footage that I may just release all of it because I'm like, well, you could make a documentary too. But
Right.
from the beginning, it was bookend me, post credit scene doing DV Tuesday, Zach Selwyn, and the animated scenes, by the way, were all things we didn't have footage of. Like, we don't have footage of this. We don't have footage that illustrates a story. How do we tell that story visually? And so animation became the solution. And then Second Life was such a perfect match because Second Life was the first metaverse that was created in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So it kind of matched AOTS at the time.
It totally did. And the 90-minute runtime, it works so well. Let me just point this out. This is a good book. But when you
Right.
have everyone on, it just becomes so long-winded. I'm at page 100. They're not even at launch of MTV. I'm just like, get to when you release Thriller already. It's just so long-winded, but yours is so tight. It's the story of Attack of the Show. And I think people can always deep dive into YouTube. They can deep dive into the archives that you put out. I think keeping it tight like that and telling the story was the way to go.
Well, it was the way to go also because I was trying to make a movie. I was trying to make a movie for two audiences, your wife and you. Seriously, like super fans of Attack of the Show that have watched episodes multiple times. They know bits, they know like lore from the show. But I couldn't ignore the fact that some people have never heard of the show. And there's
Yeah.
a generation, when I go to Comic Con or LA Comic Con or Dragon Con, or I love to go to cons, WonderCon. There are kids that are attending those conventions that never saw Attack of the Show or are like G4 TV. What's that? And I really wanted to really pay tribute to the legacy. I wanted it to be a love letter, right? About like what the network was, why it was culturally significant. And
Hmm.
funny enough, the primary people, filmmakers who work behind the scenes with me, Bobby Schwartz, who was my co-producer and edited the doc, other people like Anthony Ray Bench, Phil Eubanks, Glenn Brown, Walter Areas, all of them used to watch Attack of the Show when they were kids. Bobby Schwartz watched it when he was in junior high. We met randomly at a bar in like 2018, like just random. I met this kid and we're just like, when you meet someone who's also a movie nerd, you're like, oh, and then this and whatever. Like, it's just like, I don't care where you come from, what age, whatever. Just like, if you're a movie nerd, you know, you talk to other movie nerds, and Bobby and I
Right.
click like that. And, he just did a tremendous job and worked so hard. And so it was really that team, that core team working over several years to get like, I mean, there was a much longer cut of the doc, but again, pointing out the running time, like running time, I'll decide whether I want to see a movie based on like, well, how long is it?
Oh,
Like, and
100%.
I was always like 90 minutes or under. Like my maximum was like 98. If it's 98, fine. But like it was like, no, cut. The Blu-ray is coming. And the Blu-ray is really literally going to be, if you're a fan of the show, um, you can buy it in August. I'll probably have copies at San Diego Comic-Con in July. I'm going to
Okay.
try to find a booth that I can just sit down and uh, sign copies of it. So if people want it signed, I don't know, maybe they don't want it ruined. But Attack of the Show was the best job I ever had. The best job I ever had at in television. The other jobs I kind of like soured. I did some stuff for IFC and some other networks, FX, and I never really felt like I could be myself on camera. And what people at G4 did, John Ryber being among them, he was such a champion of mine, and he's an executive producer on the documentary. I was able to be myself. I could wear whatever t-shirt I wanted on the show.
Hmm.
You know, I could say whatever I wanted within reason, but my opinion was my opinion. So
Is that the
that was
biggest
fun.
takeaway from Is that the biggest takeaway you have from being on Attack of the Show? Because everyone clicked so well that it just made viewers seem like they were a part of it. And again, I mentioned appointment television. Uh, you know, I just worked a job I hated, in the wintertime. There are two seasons in Wisconsin. There's
Mhm.
summer and there's Packer season. I wasn't a big Packer fan, so like Attack of the Show was my shit. What was it that made you all click? And what did you take away from Attack of the Show? You can be yourself, but again, like you said, you're under a corporate umbrella. What is the biggest takeaway, or what would you tell your kids to look for because of what you found on Attack of the Show?
Well, first of all, congratulations to your Packers, multiple Super Bowl champions. My Detroit Lions in the NFC Central have not fared so well. They have never been to a Super Bowl in my lifetime. They went to a world championship in the 50s. I wasn't alive, but just had to point that out. I respect the Packers. And if the Lions aren't in it, I am rooting for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. But the thing that clicked, I would give Kevin Pereira credit. He was the best person I ever worked with in television. He set the
Mhm.
tone. He really set the tone on the network. He knew every person behind the scenes down to the grip and the lighting. I didn't know the names of everybody. Because I came in like once or twice a week and my segment's like 5 minutes. So like I would get to know like Andy, the stage manager, and other people behind the scenes, the women in the makeup department, uh, Julie and Emily, and just like that, Devin, who did my hair. Thank God for Devin. Um, but it was my best experience in TV. But Kevin really set the tone because he was on camera, and I say it in the doc. He was like Bugs Bunny. He was like an irritant. He was a
Mhm.
provocateur trying to, get us to up our game. He was the greatest improv comedian I've ever worked with. He made me better on camera, and he and Olivia were constantly trying to one up each other, constantly. Their chemistry was insane, and so his off-camera demeanor of just being just a kind-hearted person who knew everybody and thought about others more than himself, and
Hmm.
I looked up to him. I looked up to him. By the way, I'm older. I'm a lot older than Kevin. I'm a lot older than Kevin. When I started
Yeah.
working on Attack the Show, I was 40. So that's why they call me the Ancient One. But
Ah,
I'm joking. I call myself the Ancient One. But
gotta give yourself a moniker.
I don't feel old. I feel like I'm 26 and stopped aging about that. Like I'm just mature enough to like pay my bills on time and be responsible, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I still like nerd stuff and still go to nerd conventions. But no, it was really Kevin. And what I think the important thing was you could be your authentic self. Like Blair Butler, for example, she loved comic books. She read
Hmm.
comic books and she was passionate, and she did her comic book segment. I did my DV Tuesday movie segment. Everyone that was on the show was very passionate about whatever their niche was, which was cool. And I feel that like that, I believe the reason YouTube is so popular is because what people respond to is the authenticity. We know things like morning shows or The View or late night shows or a lot of stuff in the news, it just seems fake. Those people are fake. I mean, I can tell
Right.
you from experience that most of the people that read the news don't know a lot about what they're saying, but they are well prepped by producers. I didn't need prep from my producer other than like, hey, your segment's this, make sure this, mention that this is out on this day. Fine, great. But I know about this movie, right? I so I think the reason people responded to Attack of the Show is authenticity. And the reason I believe that the spawn of G4 TV and Attack of the Show, the legacy that G4 left was tens of thousands of creators on YouTube that decide they're passionate about crocheted toilet paper holders and then dedicate an entire channel to crochet toilet paper holders, like an Iron Man crochet toilet paper holder. I'm sure that exists on Etsy. Anyways, I don't know why I
Sure
brought that up.
does.
I'm just saying I love that YouTube is a rabbit hole. Whatever your interests, UFOs or this or I'm always looking at YouTube for a lot of how-to stuff and then nerd stuff. And I like
Yes.
perspectives from all ends of the spectrum. I find I'm able to learn. I learn more when I listen to people whose opinions I don't necessarily agree with because it gives me a chance to question my own ideas. So by
Right.
design, there's a little thing. There's a part of the movie where I show a bunch of YouTubers. They're from all over the map on purpose, totally on purpose because. And I appreciate that you noticed like a lot of what I was trying to do. You got it. Like, um, I feel we live in this really um, horrible kind of divided time. I mean, I expect politics to be divided. Politics will always be a divisive thing. It just is.
Sure.
But nerd culture being divided, I don't care that you maybe love a Star Wars movie I don't like. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Tell me why you love it. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing is standing in line at some nerd event. And we've lost that, with like reserved seating at movies now. It's like, I kind of love standing in line. And
Yeah.
you become friends with people you've been in line with for hours. They made more than one documentary about people who waited in line for the Star Wars prequels. The
Hmm.
best one, I think, is one called Star Woids, directed by Dennis Priswera. Fantastic documentary about nerd culture at that time. And I just see the way nerd culture is, and I'm like, what are we fighting about? Like, I also vehemently dislike certain things, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. But what are you going after me for? Like, tell me what your opinion is. Like, we'll fight it out. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I don't make it about the person. I make it about the debate and the argument. And I'll tell you why I feel a certain way or why I think the death of Han Solo was terribly handled as opposed to
Hmm.
the death of Spock in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, one of the best earned movie deaths where the people that loved Spock through so many adventures, reacted to him dying, whereas Han Solo got stabbed by a lightsaber from his son and fell into an abyss. That's not a way that Han Solo goes out. He goes out a
Yeah.
hero, or he flies off into the sunset or the hyperspace sunset, whatever. So I'll debate with you, but if you disagree with me, you are free to love whatever you love. I'm not going to yuck your yum, so to speak. But yeah, I've just seen nerd culture get divided, and that was part of my goal with making this movie, because the idea popped into my head in 2017 after the 10,000th time I was like recognized for like, hey, you used to be on Attack of the Show. I'm like, someone should make a documentary explaining what happened. And I thought, well, I'll make it. I'll just make it. And it's called Attack of the Doc. Originally it was called Attack of the Documentary. But
Attack of the Doc.
it fits. It fits. Attack of the Doc. Someone said you should call it a doc of the show. So I don't know. That's kind of funny. But no, I really wanted to show a time. If I just showed you what it used to be, what was geek culture like? Well, we just loved stuff, and we
Yeah.
debated. We debated passionately behind the scenes on the show. I would go there, do my 5-minute segment. I'd be there for 3 hours because we'd be talking behind the scenes about, did you see the new trailer? What do you think of The Dark Knight? I don't know. Heath Ledger is the Joker. We get in these conversations just like I still do. It hasn't changed. But I wanted to remind people of that time. I wanted to show people, because there's been an unfortunate hate for the new G4. I chose not to include that because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
you might, I'm sure you may want to ask that question. I wasn't there. This is not my story to tell. Um, I feel like it's been covered relentlessly, thousands of hours on YouTube already. It's recent history, so there isn't time to for it to settle. But I'll say this: when it comes to the new launch of G4, the old G4 had 5 years before it got good. G4 was not good in 2002 when it started. They were throwing stuff at the wall and experimenting with different shows and seeing what worked and what didn't work. It wasn't really until around 2007, after I'd been there for 2 years, I'm like, oh my God, this is people really love this. And I'm getting recognized at Trader Joe's, which is cool. It's my favorite grocery store.
Same.
Uh, but the new G4 didn't even have a year to make mistakes, to fail and come back from it. The one thing I think that the big mistake, if I could say one thing, you got to have a sense of humor about yourself. You can't attack
Totally
the
do.
audience. You just can't attack the audience. You got to have if you make a mistake, make it into a joke. The audience will be on your side. Ultimately, the majority of the audience is already on your side, and there will always be jerks. There'll always be jerks in the chat. That's
Yep.
just, that's the internet. Welcome to the internet. There's the best thing could happen, and someone will, give their remark here. Don't let those people affect you. Don't let them affect you. So that's what I have to say about that.
Oh, that's good. And that's again why I like Attack of the Doc. It is the story about Attack of the Show. It's not the other stuff. It's not the people's individual stories going along. It is very condensed. If you got time, I just got a quick segment. Roy,
Please,
what
yeah,
did you
let's
do
keep
today?
going, man. Let's do it.
All right. First, before that, quick question. You were in probably one of my favorite remakes of all time, Night of the Living Dead. What is your favorite remake of all time?
Oh, wow. Favorite remake of all time. Wow, you're really putting me on the spot here. I like DOA with Dennis Quaid, but I like the original,
Mm,
Dead on Arrival. It's about a guy who finds out he has 24 hours to live because he's been poisoned. So he tries to solve his own murder. Um, but I don't know. Favorite remake? Boy, I would really need to do a deep dive. This is the curse of having seen too many movies.
right,
So
right.
yeah. But DOA, I really like that one with Dennis Quaid. I thought it was really, I mean, it's different. I'm familiar with the original DOA. There's even a video game that kind of rips it off too, which is totally fine. But I really like that. Even Cyberpunk has a little DOA in it, old school film noir. Cyberpunk 2077, the video game,
Mhm.
during all the pandemic when we couldn't get together and stuff. I finished that game. I quite enjoyed it. I didn't find I started playing it 3 months after it came out, so all the bugs were done and whatever. But yeah, I Cyberpunk 2077, I really love. DOA, it's a great story. You could probably remake it again.
Okay,
Just a great story.
nice.
Cool. Great.
Um, so DVD Day, we do
Yes.
some rapid fires on there. Are you
Ooh.
comfortable doing a rapid fire with some DVDs that I have right here?
Hell yeah. I've got DVDs on my shelf right here. Let's go.
Beautiful.
Let's
All
do it.
right, we'll put some time on the clock here. I have tough skin, so fire off whatever you feel about
Let's
it.
hear it.
I live on the mean streets of LA. I've survived phase 4 of Marvel. Hit me up with whatever you got here. All right,
Let's go.
buy, rent, or pass. They live.
Oh, that's a buy. 100% a buy. One of the greatest. Now, if they could remake They Live now, it would be fantastic. I loved that movie as a kid. I love when anyone cosplays as They Live at a convention. But that's a buy 100%.
Hell yeah. Battle Royale.
Oh, is it the first one? That's
First
also a
one, not the
buy.
second one.
Oh, the second one. That's the second one, or it's both, a box set with both.
It's both. Yep.
Okay, buy the first one, pass on the second one. It kind of ruins the first one. The first one is a
Agreed.
classic. Hunger Games definitively ripped it off. But that first Battle Royale is fantastic. Unfortunately, Battle Royale 2 pass.
Yeah. Monster Squad.
Oh, Monster Squad. God, I have not seen that in years. I would say rent on that. I would say rent.
Okay.
Solid
Nice.
rent.
Clue.
Clue. Oh my God. I remember when that was in theaters when I was a kid. I haven't seen it since. If it includes all the endings, rent it.
Okay.
Rent it. But
And
that's
for
a
anyone who hasn't done
cool.
it, when you saw it in theaters, they did do that. You didn't know what ending you were going to get in
You
the
didn't know
theater.
what ending you were going to get when you went to the theater, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. All right. A favorite of mine, The Burbs.
Oh, that movie's a lot of fun. I would say bye. Love Tom Hanks. Love Tom Hanks.
Nice. Killer Clowns.
Oh, bye on that. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's one of those movies that's like really fun to put on because a lot of people are not familiar with that movie. And oh my God, I love that film. Love it.
Yes. Masters of the Universe.
Oh wow, I would say a buy on that because I love Dolph Lundgren. In fact,
Yeah.
believe it or not, there's a Dolph Lundgren documentary I just did an interview for. It is the story of his life. I think it's going to be hitting film festivals, but I did like a couple hours of being grilled about Dolph Lundgren. Definite buy on Masters. It's kind of
Nice.
weird that it was made, but I love it.
Very weird. Especially I grew up with the cartoon and the toys, and then this
Oh
came
yeah,
out, but it is what it is.
yeah.
Independence Day Resurgence.
Oh, that is a hard pass. I saw that in the theater. Oh my God. I can't believe I felt so dumb watching it. Like it was bad. It's like to me, I've never seen a drop in quality of like a movie. Like Independence Day was so much fun, so great, hit all the beats, great summer movie. Resurgence is god awful. And then I felt the same way about Highlander. The first Highlander movie is so good, and Highlander
Yeah.
2 is like it didn't even feel like a sequel to Highlander. It was so dumb and it changed the lore.
Yeah.
I hated Highlander 2. So there you go. Cool.
Grindhouse with both movies on it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a buy for sure. That's a buy. You got it. Tarantino, man, I'm so excited about his next movie, his so-called last movie. I heard what it's about and cannot wait. It's about a movie critic and it's set in the
Yeah.
70s.
I'm
Can't wait.
excited too. I actually really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so
I love it. One of my favorite movies that year. So
nice.
cool.
I got two left here. One of
Two
my favorite
left.
90s.
Oh, The Crow. That's 100% a buy. God, it's a tragic film, not just because of like what happens in the movie, but what happened to
Mhm.
Brendan Lee like during the movie. It's horrific. But yeah, that one is like a goth classic. So many great,
Yeah.
I love it.
Our last one is a personal favorite. You can get this officially now, but this is a bootleg that I got a while ago. The movie Rad.
Oh my God. I'm trying to remember that movie when it came out. Look, I'm gonna say buy the actual edition. But yeah, I love movies. I miss movies like that with just like simple premises, just simple
Yeah.
premises, kind of like slightly coming of age, but like cool stuff. They don't even make those movies anymore. They don't make a lot of like teen comedies or teen action or whatever. Not they're all like the Hunger Games, I guess. Which now the Hunger Games is being rebooted. Did you see the trailer?
I unfortunately saw the trailer. It just looks it's too pretty while trying to
Yeah.
look gritty.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually liked the first couple, the first Hunger Games movie. I thought was very good. It was different. It was, yes, battle royale inspired, but had a little different, bigger political overtones, which the battle royale, the original, did not get into. And Hunger Games kind of took it in a slightly different direction. But it's interesting because battle royale, when it came out, Columbine had just happened, and that movie just got.
Uh,
They were going to do a remake of Battle Royale set in the United States not after Columbine. They just shut it all down.
wow.
So there you go. But
Well, thanks
yeah.
for playing along. Anything that you want to recommend? Any random movie that you think viewers should check out?
Oh yeah, Psycho Gorman. I think it's on Shutter right now. I don't know if you it's like a horror comedy that is not for kids, but it features
Beautiful.
kids and it's bizarre and weird. And I love that film, Psycho Gorman. If there was DVD Day, I probably would have reviewed it. So there you go. But yeah, Zach, man, thank you for having me on. This is great. I'm so glad you were at the premiere. It was a lot of fun. And, like, yeah, there were people who worked on the movie and there were like special guests and people who worked at the old G4 and stuff there. But I always wanted to make it like you can just buy a ticket and attend. I
Yeah.
will never not do that with a movie that I make. I always want to have people, just anybody can show up. And I'm working on another movie now. I hope to be out next year. That's like basically finished. We're going to submit it to festivals, kind of a different route for this film. It's called Film Threat Sucks, and it's about
Ah,
Film Threat magazine in the 90s. And
okay.
it's not similar to Attack of the Doc, but it's also like another period archival doc too. So I hope you check it out.
I definitely will, and I hope everyone checks out Attack of the Doc. It just hits, especially if you're a fan of the show. Thank you for making this. My final question: this was closure that I didn't even think I needed on a show that kind of like, again, I didn't have appointment television unless it was Attack of the Show. Do you feel like you have this proper closure with that portion of your life after making this doc?
Oh man, thank you for asking that question because no one has asked that question. And it was, yeah, there needed to be proper closure. I don't think there really was. I mean, there was like sort of a final party and whatever. There was like a final gathering but it's like, why are they pulling the plug? This is like people loved the show.
Yeah.
And there was like some sort of like I say, it was the best job I ever had in television. It's also the least money that I made. I'm not complaining, believe me, but I had such a great time, so many great memories, and I wanted to kind of, in a way, just emotionally, like show people what it was like to be on the show on any given day, how weird it was, the crazy stuff that could happen. That like you walk in, the writing staff, like Casey Schreiner comes in at like 8 in the morning, like, okay, what are we doing today? I don't know what's in the news. By 1 p.m. in the afternoon, they have a script. They're doing a read through, eating lunch while they're reading through. Kevin and Olivia there. Boom, they're doing a show that day. I waltz in and I'm like, all right, well, where's my part? And they're like, oh, we want to kill you in the open. Are you cool with being killed? I'm like, well, this is like the fourth time you've done it to me. Sure. Um, and yeah, I felt like I really wanted to put closure, but also remind people of that time. So when you look at nerd culture, maybe think twice before rage, argue with someone who didn't like the show that you loved. Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like I've been around nerd culture since I was a kid. I mean, I've been going to like nerd conventions since I was probably 5, 6 years old. And the whole, even the idea of a convention has evolved. But I've never seen it be divided ever, ever. It's always like, man, the nerds, we're a big tent. We don't care. Do you love something that's here? Doctor Who, Star Wars, Highlander, Battlestar Galactica, nobody cares. You find something that you love or make your own thing. Come on
Yep.
in. It's a big tent. And we've just become so divided. part of my not so secret, motive in making this was to remind people of when we were more united and celebrated things. So yeah, it is partially making this was closure for me. And I wanted it to be broadly appealing to, I made it for the fans because I was a fan. I
Yeah.
watched Screensavers and X-Play before I was even on Screensavers, then Attack of the Show. So I, you know, for me, it was like, wow, I'm like a fan. I'm like, here, oh my God, there's Kevin, there's Sarah Lane. Like, this is great. And then, maybe it won't be the last documentary, I think if I had, because originally my plan was to include interviews with Kevin and Olivia, it would be a different movie. And I think it would be
Yeah.
a very, very different movie. I don't know that it would have been a better film to try and condense 20 years of history. And then I have to balance the politics of, well, who am I interviewing? Who am I not? How much screen time do they get? Who's the
Yep.
makeup artist that's going to show up? Because we started filming in March of 2020. We built a studio. We started shooting interviews and had all these interviews booked. And then you know what happened? The pandemic. So I had to figure out a
Yep.
different way to tell the story, which became, well, let's shift the focus. G4 is coming back. We're still in this pandemic stuff. I'll just interview people and it'll all be audio. And I was influenced by a bunch of really great documentaries. Can I do one last movie recommendation
Go
for you?
ahead.
It's
Yeah.
called You Don't Know Me, spelled Nomi. It's a documentary about showgirls and showgirls fandom. And guess what? The filmmaker didn't shoot one bit of footage. It's all archival footage and voices that he interviewed over a live stream like you and I right now. And it's a great documentary. You Don't Know Me really inspired me. The Belushi doc, Brett Morgan's Montage of Heck, and then the David Bowie doc came out later. Montage of Heck is about Kurt Cobain. But
Mm.
archival docs are different. It's almost a subgenre of documentary. There are music documentaries. This is sort of Attack of the Doc. My idea was, well, it's a pop culture documentary that's also archival. And by design to have you, I wanted people to remember the feelings they had, which is why I have to mention Austin Smith, who did the score. He was working on the score before we even started the movie. And he would send me these like flourishes and like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds like the era, right? Like we were trying to have like the sort of opening of the movie. I'm trying to say, okay, like I'm going to take you back in time. I want you to remember some stuff. A little bit of hypnosis there. But yeah, the score was a big part of like how I want to make people feel. There's moments at the end that are like, I've gotten reviews from people saying they got choked up at the end. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make you feel something, which is ultimately, Attack of the Show made us feel a lot of great things. And I hope it's a memento to the legacy of the show. And congratulations to you for doing what you do, podcasting and being a creator and doing YouTube and all that. Like, I think Attack of the Show, if anything, proved that like, there's not a lot of formal training you need to be on TV. I certainly didn't have it. It's just, you know what? Are you passionate about something? Start talking,
Yep.
and you'll figure everything else out. But God, Zach, I talk too much. I know this. This is
That's
what.
fine. This is all great for me. I'm taking this all in like a sponge. I love it. You guys were MTV two to me. There are only two big
Yeah.
things in cable for me, and it was the birth of MTV and it was G4 and Attack of the Show. The rest of their side of me loves the Monday Night Wars, but these were the two things that were just really punk rock that I really loved about what used to be, yes, old man Zach talking, but back in my day, those were the two things for me.
Old man Zach, get out of here, dude. Like I'm Gen X, so my attitudes were like, so I'm definitely punk rock, DIY. How do we do something with like no money, like
Yeah. Mm.
and get it released and then give it to everybody? So I appreciate that you noticed that. And yeah, man, I can't not be everything I do is sort of punk rock way of doing it. So
Best way,
thank
and
you.
it's more real. So thank you for being a part of just pop culture. Thank you for Attack of the Show. Thank you for Attack of the Doc. Chris Gore, thank you for doing this. You can find him at Film Threat. We'll put the links below on where you can find Attack of the Doc. Please seek this out and leave comments, especially if you haven't watched Attack of the Show. I'd love to get your thoughts on what it was, because it was just a beautiful time in geek culture. Chris Gore, thank you so much for doing this.
And Zach, truthfully, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just very grateful that we're here to be able to still talk about this stuff. And I'm grateful that that you appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris, do you have anything to say?
I hope you thought it was entertaining. It's a love letter to G4 and Attack of the Show, and it was made by a bunch of guys who were in junior high. And they were watching. I'm serious. I met this guy, Bobby Schwartz. We were at a bar.
Go figure.
It was Hollywood and Highland. What bar was it?
I think it was the Cantina.
The Cantina, Cabo Wabo. And he was a mere child when he used to watch the show. And so
Chris took me in and he made me make a movie. And...
but it's like at the beginning when it says made by fans for fans, like I was a fan of the show, but I was on the show, and everyone here, Austin Smith, Walter Areas, Anthony Rampage, Bobby Schwartz, we're all fans of the show who were children when they watched it, and thank God for their amazing parents.
Yeah, we'd like to give a big shout out to all of our parents.
Yes.
All right, so we'll skip Chris for a moment. We'll go to the rest of the show. Just tell me, it's done. You did it. What was, you guys were fans of Attack of the Show. While you were putting this together, what are some of the feelings and thoughts you had while you were pulling this film together?
I literally answered this during the first Q&A, so I apologize for anybody who stayed for both showings. It was really cool because G4 was canceled in 2013, and I started work on the doc in late 2020. So a lot of the footage that we were kind of cultivating and creating a library with, I hadn't seen in a long time. And as a fan, Chris says junior high, I was in college. As a fan that literally came home every day and just really looked forward to watching Attack of the Show and just G4 in general, that footage meant a lot to me. It took me back to a much simpler time in my life, and it was, quite frankly, just really cool to relive those memories, and also kind of sad because you know that it's never going to come back in the way that it was. So yeah, it was very cool, nostalgic, and ultimately bittersweet.
I have all of those same feelings you do, Anthony. I would say that the best thing about making this movie is it really legitimized all the hours that I pumped into watching that show after school.
Yes.
Because I had a place to put all of this fandom and all these like memories, and like you said, it had been a while since I had seen the show, but I felt like I had a pretty good place to start looking for stuff, because all of those shows, I mean, there's some really prolific stuff that like lived, had a permanent spot in my mind, and I hope that we picked moments that, if you were a fan of the show, were ones that you remembered. It was really hard to put everything in there. I mean, 90 minutes out of like over 10 years of television is, probably, I mean, that was one of the thoughts I had while I was making the movies, like, how are we going to do this? But hopefully you saw a couple of snippets that you remember, and that's really all this was, is just like a nostalgia trip for all of us.
Yeah, I have a really weird connection to all of this, because I was actually in the game industry for a good 10 years. Actually, while G4 was on the air, I was actually making video games for a good part of that time. And it really is weird bringing me back to that point in time where I struggled, and I went to those E3s, and I went to those big shows, and I got to see a lot of that from an industry perspective. And now here I am working on a movie that celebrates all that time that I spent, and it was beautiful, it was bittersweet, but at the same time, I can enjoy it for what it was, and I'm glad that I spent that time there in that space, and I'm glad that this movie is here to celebrate that time in that space, and I'm glad to share that with all of you.
Basically, we're all just super validated now.
Yeah, it's weird looking back on that time, especially like for like Bobby and I, we were literally kids when I was on the air, and like if nothing else, it was a big time capsule for the era because like I was like, wow, this was just a lot of fun, and it feels like we're kind of missing a lot of that in at least media nowadays. And I gotta say, like Attack of the Show was like way ahead of its time. I remember doing research, watching old episodes on YouTube, and they were covering stuff in like 2006, like they were in Japan covering phones that you unlock with your thumbprint, and it's like, I don't think we got that over here till like, what, 2010 or something? And yeah, stuff like that. I was blown away. I was like, these guys were on it.
What all of them are saying is they got their first boners watching Attack of the Show. And I just want to say congratulations to you all.
And thank you, Chris, for your boners. Okay, Chris, let me ask you this question. You lived through it. You made a documentary about it. I assume this is the final version because I've seen at least 4 versions.
Yes.
What are you feeling right now?
Well, first of all, I'm just happy that you're here. Like, I can't believe there's people that want to see this movie. I mean, as much as like the trailer looks like sort of Jackass, right? Like, it's like crazy stuff that happens. It's nuts. But like, I wanted to remind people of a time when we could laugh at ourselves, when we had a sense of humor, when we weren't looking to cancel someone because they thought up a joke about something that was funny. So, you know, so I hope you just appreciate like this era that's like really like recent history. Actually, it's like not that long ago that Attack of the Show was on that we could all watch it. So, yeah, all right, more boner jokes. Bobby, let's go. If you currently on your phone go to yourassgotserved.com, it redirects to attackofthedoc.com. Also, we created in Second Life a virtual version of the set of Attack of the Show. You can go to it when you get the Blu-ray. There's a link that takes you directly to. You can walk through the actual set of Attack of the Show in a metaverse, which is pretty cool.
Both versions of the set are in there. The one pre-2010 and the one after.
Yes, so there are like 2 versions of the set. So when you saw like those, like, how do we do like, because we were thinking like, okay, there are these sequences where we don't have supporting footage. What do we do? Well, we'll do Second Life. It was the first metaverse in the early 2000s. So we recreated. When I say we, I didn't do that. But other people more talented than I am, like recreated that area.
So, now, which set has the pie, the giant pie?
The giant pie. Or should we put the pie in there?
Yes, we should put the pie in there.
Yes. And I gotta say, this guy Bobby sacrificed so much during the making of this doc. He did not have a girlfriend previous to this. I think. Did I see you walking with a lady?
And nearly died.
I'm with Walter now.
And I'm just saying, I'm really happy for you. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
So, this guy.
Hey, we did it. Chris said, dude, I have these ideas for songs, and I want a song about Olivia leaving, I want a song about the Tech TV murder, I want a song called something about you can't do the shit we used to do on TV anymore. And so I wrote it that night, and I like sent you a demo, and you're like, oh my God. So that song we're gonna try to release as like a single. We're gonna go for an Academy Award on this shit. Damn it. Forget Shallow by Bradley Cooper and shit.
Who does a soundtrack to a documentary? We just did. Monday, it's free. And also go to yourassgotserved.com. Don't forget, I'm here tonight and celebrating a show that I loved, I was a part of. I was a fan of the show, I was on the show, I was a fan, and this movie is like by fans, for fans, and it's really a love letter. Bobby?
I agree. I mean, it was just nostalgia laden. We wanted to celebrate. It's an important time, I think, in all of our lives for different reasons, and we know that we're not alone in that, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
One of the things we kind of talked about when we were making this documentary is that we wanted it to be a love letter to the fans. And as someone who worked on the documentary, if you remove that, like, I would have loved this as a fan. This would have been great. I would have watched this. I would have passed it around to all my friends. This is an awesome project to be a part of, and thank you guys for helping us and being here.
I mean, this movie has been a part of my life for the last 3 years, and for better or worse,
I feel like a parent, but like my kid's going off to college at age 4.
That's kind of how this feels, actually.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I'm so stoked, so happy, so thrilled, nervous, terrified to share our little baby with all of you.
We tried our best. I mean, no parent, no child is perfect. Yes, right.
I'm just glad this child didn't get left behind.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, this project's been just the best freaking thing ever. I think we all kind of lucked out too, because I think just personality-wise, it syncs up with everybody. So this is like, I would say unfiltered us, but it definitely, you know, got filtered a little.
Yeah, no, I hate all of you guys. I don't know what you're talking about.
I wasn't allowed a part of making this movie other than my little part, so I just want to say thanks to all these guys for a great job. You guys kicked ass. Thanks for bringing in people and much love.
Okay, one last thing. Tell about Monday.
Monday, Attack of the Doc comes out on video on demand on the 21st anniversary of the launch of G4 TV. I'm super excited about that. I want everyone to see it. So you can get it for $2.99 to rent or whatever. Anyways, yeah. But thank you for showing up to this. Let's go party together. And, awesome.
Thanks for coming out, and thank you to Green Cinema for hosting the world premiere of Attack of the Doc.